Today, the world is at a critical moment in fighting against global warming and climate change. And we are here to make a recommendation based on our comprehensive analysis on how to minimize GHG emissions. Last year alone, the CO2 concentrations had increased by 150%. GHG not only impact environments, but it also bring illness and disease, as well as more and more extreme weather and nature disaster. Diving deeper, CO2 takes the biggest portion in all greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, we will look at all the most innovative and outstanding technologies and strategy to combat CO2.
Looking at the CCUS value chain, we realize that a ton of these technologies are still in the prototyping and demonstration phase. This is going to very much influence which industries they can be used in. Next slide. We've also done a comparison of carbon capture technologies across factors like efficiency, energy usage, cost, and a few others. And we've provided a summary on the next slide. As you can see, we've compared 4 carbon capture technologies, and right now we know that pre-combustion and post-combustion are the most important. However, in the future, there's definitely a ton of opportunity for direct air capture to become more advanced as the technology progresses. In addition, we've also compared carbon utilization technologies across criteria such as net environmental impact, economic viability, as well as scalability and technology maturity. As you can see on the graph, direct utilization does lead the pack right now. However, it does have the caveat that it has neutral or negative environmental impact. This is something to be considered. Moving on. And finally, we did a comparison of carbon storage technologies across criteria such as capacity, scalability, cost, energy requirements, and so on. And so depending on how much you want to store, geological sequestration or biological sequestration might be the best option for you. We've summarized all of this analysis into a decision framework. First, depending on where you're getting the CO2 from, you might want to consider direct air capture, pre, post, or oxy-fuel combustion, or simply carbon offsets and credits. And next, depending on whether you want to focus on utilization and storage, as well as a few other criteria such as amount of storage requirement, as well as availability of location, you might want to consider biological or geological sequestration, or on the utilization side, direct utilization or conversion. And finally, on the analysis of emission sources, we know that in Canada and globally, stationary combustion sources account for the most. Hence, we need to focus our efforts on reducing industrial emission sources.
Moving on, two main CO2 combat strategies are carbon offsets and carbon credits. The main difference are one is traded in voluntary market, while the other are use cap and trade system on a regulated market. Even though they are different, two markets share the same concept. If you have excess emissions, you will need to buy offsets. On another hand, if you have surplus room, you will be able to sell your credit. Even though voluntary markets are predicted to be more unstable, both of them are expected to increase safely by 2030, reaching $10 to $1.6 trillion. The two markets has different competitor landscape as well as regulatory. However, they're facing a couple same challenges in pricing and impact as well as quality measurements. Carbon pricing mechanism is a tricky one, as you don't want to price your high too high or too low. And therefore, our solution will bring in the answer for how to set the perfect price. Moving on, we realize that all stakeholders share the same incentives on fighting against climate change and global warming. However, they have different reservations. While government focus on regulations, company and investor are more concerned about cost and return in investment. At the same time, public are want more transparency. Understand these challenges and reservations, we came up with our solutions. At the very baseline, we want to make sure that our project will be able to bring in positive profits for investment and company. And therefore, we identify a couple diversity revenue sources. And on the cost side, amongst with all the bucket that as you can see here, we also want to highlight there's an opportunity reduction in cost from all the government funding available on the market.
What we've done is we've provided financial analysis of a potential project involving carbon capture and utilization in the oil and gas space. As you can see, we're going to capture 13 million tons of CO2, as well as make a net profit of 2.01 billion. The amount of CO2 captured was calculated by combining capture efficiency as well as production output. And on the next slide, you can see more details about this. Moving on, we have done the same thing with the power plants for natural gas, and we've also provided more information on the next slide. Moving on.
Now coming to the predictive model, where we are predicting the carbon credit prices of the numerical European market and the carbon offset prices for the voluntary market. We took the data, our data source include carboncredits.com and IEA database, which of the CCUS projects. We considered the CCU projects for features and the carbon credit prices and carbon offset prices as our target. And for evaluation metrics, which shows mean absolute percentage error and mean squared error. The only constraint that model we realized was that a lack of availability of sufficient historical data. Next. Now coming to the data exploration. Most projects focus only on carbon capture and are in the planning stage. However, most of the projects that are under construction and operational fall under the full chain category. Most of the current planned projects are envisaged to be operational between 2024 and 2030, and most of them are scheduled to be based in US, followed by UK and Canada. Now coming to the voluntary market price and European market prices. They grew substantially in 2021, but gradually they have fallen down. Based on our research, we realized that basically some of the projects never took off, and that affected the investors' confidence. Next. Now coming to the feature engineering, we did a little bit of feature transformation before training our model. We basically extracted the operational and the FID projects from the IEA datasets, and we took the quarterly price of both carbon credit and carbon offset from the carbon credit prices and divided into our features and target variables. Next. Followed by feature training, we divided into test, validation, test split. We trained the model, and then we checked for our performance metrics. Model tend to offer the training data, but still give a sufficient fit on our testing data. Next. Now coming to the model conclusion and way forward, the model serves as a proof of concept for predicting carbon credit and carbon offset prices. However, due to the lack of availability of adequate data of both carbon credit and carbon offset and the CCUS projects, this accuracy there's still scope for improvement of accuracy. And by scaling it by incorporating more data, the model can have the sufficient predictability to enhance investor confidence in carbon credits and potentially evolve into a robust tool for carbon credit training. Thank you, and have a good day.